900,000. Wow, that's amazing. Okay, folks, before we bring our speaker on, Nguyen from Crown Castle, we wanted to thank our title sponsors. Obviously, without their contribution, most of this could not happen. And that is Vertical Bridge, and they had an army of folks up there, including Steve, who works at Vertical Bridge, as well as Ontivity. So thank you, major sponsors. It's wonderful that you guys participate the way you do. Now, our keynote, afternoon keynote speaker, as mentioned, is Nguyen. He's the Senior VP of Leasing Operations at Crown Castle. And he was put in that role last year, I believe, wasn't he? Okay. And he focuses on executing and optimizing the customer leasing experience for Crown Castle's portfolio of towers across the country. San joined Crown Castle in 2009 from J.P. Morgan and has served in many roles across the organization, including Senior VP of Project Delivery, VP of Corporate Finance, and Area President for Towers. San holds a BBA and an MPA in accounting from University of Texas. Hook 'em. And received his executive MBA from Rice University. So let's welcome San to the stage.
Thank you very much. I'm good. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. If you're inclined to take a nap, I completely understand. I recognize that I'm following lunch here. But also, picture says 1,000 words, so we actually have a video here. I was wondering if I could get some help from the AV folks here with the video. Thank you.
Technology has changed the way we live.
Creators, innovators, and visionaries are redefining what's possible.
Emerging technologies and new industries are erasing the boundaries that separate people, places, and ideas.
For more than 25 years, Crown Castle has been building and maintaining the infrastructure that supports this new way of life.
Towers across every city, town, and community
keep us connected to what matters most.
Instantly delivering voice, text, and data to the devices we depend on.
Small cells, hiding in plain sight, improve coverage and set the stage for new advancements, like the Internet of Things,
smart city technologies,
and 5G,
eventually delivering up to 20 times the speed of current networks.
They allow us to do more of the things we love.
To experience the world on our terms.
Tying it together is our nationwide network of fiber,
transmitting our most important moments,
and bringing the entire world to us in the blink of an eye.
Here is where we find ourselves.
Providing the infrastructure that new innovation requires.
The space where transformative ideas thrive.
The connections that keep communities together, safe and growing.
Because here, anything is possible.
We're Crown Castle.
The pathway to possible.
Thank you. And good afternoon, everyone. As Craig mentioned, my name is Nguyen. I'm the Senior Vice President of Leasing Operations at Crown Castle. Really excited to be here, really support the South Wireless Summit and all the great things that the organization does. So thank you for having us. Every time I watch that video, it feels a little grand. When you watch one of those videos, it's hopefully inspirational. But if you're like me, hopefully you're not, sometimes I take what we do for granted, right? Crown Castle's we operate infrastructure. Others out here in the room provide wireless service, site act, construction, materials, staffing, all sorts of folks out here. And in isolation, I think sometimes we miss the forest for the trees. And because collectively what we do really does transform the world. And in my perspective, I find it easier to think about an analogy to provide some context. And I think a really good one for wireless service and wireless communication and infrastructure is the highway system. The highway system has physical roads, interstates, freeways, connects cities and communities, moves goods, creates mobility in the population, drives the economy forward. And then I think about wireless service and communications infrastructure, and it's actually very similar. We provide for the movement of data, and data allows us to communicate, to collaborate, to innovate. And it also helps brings down barriers, right? Like if you want to move from one city to the next, you can do that with the highway system. And then with communications infrastructure, we are taking down barriers because we're connecting people and businesses to new ideas, to new opportunities, to new markets. So in both ways, we really do propel trade and commerce forward, right? I mean, just think about what we've been able to do as a wireless industry collectively, right? It's not just Crown, it's collective here. In terms of e-commerce, mobile payments, the gig economy, social media. Not all of it's great, but most of it's pretty good. And so we do that together, and what we do really together is we make we create the pathway to what is possible together. And together is something I want to just spend a minute on. For Crown, in 2022, we relied on a network of 3,631 vendors. We like to be very precise at Crown, 3,631 vendors. This network, these partnerships, these vendors, is really what makes our business possible. And it's an entire ecosystem of general contractors, site act firms, professional services firm, engineering, staffing firms, material suppliers, landscaping, HVAC. A lot of folks drive our success. And we would not be able to do this without the help of the folks in this room. So I just want to take a moment to say thank you. And I'm pretty sure I speak for all of Crown in expressing my appreciation for the work that you guys do to help us be successful. Because without your partnership, without your collaboration, your focus on quality and safety, we won't be able to do what we do for our customers. So thank you very much. And on that topic, I just want to spend a minute on safety. Obviously, safety is very important for all of us here. I'm sure it's been part of other keynote speeches. But at Crown Castle, we've been spending and investing heavily in safety, in our safety organization and capabilities. So you'll continue to see us really support our general contractor community in terms of training and certification, as well as working with our customers and their safety teams. Because what we want to do is make sure that anyone that's working on our site goes home safe every night, and that the community is left better for the work that we do. The other thing I want to mention is from a business perspective, we always want to make sure we provide our customers with ease, speed, and predictability. You'll hear that term if you speak to Crown folks. We want to do the same, though, for our vendors. So we've gotten a lot of feedback over the years, and there's been a concerted effort on our part to make sure that we are partnering with our vendors to make it easier for you to work with us. That includes revamping or streamlining of our onboarding processes. We are spending more time and effort working with our own insurance providers to help facilitate insurance and safety submittals. We are working to make sure that there's organizational structure in place to make sure that there's responsive and transparent communication with our vendors, as well as ensuring that there's incentive programs that drive your businesses forward as you help us. So together we will go far. All right, before I jump into materials, I do just have to plug Crown Castle for just a few minutes. Crown Castle, we are the largest shared infrastructure provider in the United States, have a comprehensive portfolio of 40,000 towers, 120,000 small cells, and 85,000 miles of fiber. We work closely with the wireless carriers and service providers. We work with businesses, technology companies, governments, communities, and our infrastructure and services enable these businesses and these entities to connect with data, technology, and services that they need to work their business. And as I mentioned, we do this together. Like Crown Castle doesn't do this by ourselves. And we've come a really long way together. And as we look at the road forward, the rest of this conversation is really going to be around what does this road forward look like that we will travel together. And there's really two parts of the conversation that I would like to take you guys through. One is data demand, right? Ultimately, consumer demand and business data demand is going to drive our business. And the second is, to balance out the equation, is the appetite and ability for investments to drive the infrastructure and the work that we need to do to actually meet that demand. And it's, I don't have a crystal ball. If I did, I'd be filthy rich, and I wouldn't be here, even though I love being here. But I always find it helpful to look back in the past because it gives us a glimpse into the future of where we're headed. Mark Twain once said, history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme, so I think this will give us some patterns here that we can tease out. 1G delivered analog voice. I mean, geez, those brick phones. 2G introduced digital voice and text messaging. 3G brought us the what I would call basic mobile internet, email, the BlackBerries. And then 4G ushered in the era of the mobile internet with video. And in all these cases, as technology improved both in the network and in the handsets, consumer adoption, consumer demand for data pretty much outstripped anything that we would invest into the network, right? As soon as we brought capacity online, it got consumed. And here's really the punchline. We expect the same for 5G. 5G, even with the use cases we see in front of us today, we expect demand for data to continue to grow at staggering rates. And then once we factor in what 5G networks can do, we expect that the demand will be even more exponential as we think about future use cases into the foreseeable future. Bear with me for a second here. The smartphone really is the hub of our lives. They drive how we communicate, how we access information, how we work, how we play. I actually try to catalog, just for this purpose of this discussion, all the things I use my smartphone for. Weirdly enough, I don't use it for social media, but that might just be me. But I was just tracking it. In the morning, I check the weather, make sure I know what's in store for the day. Check the news, check the calendar to see how I can plan my day. I use it to route myself to work, to figure out what's the fastest way there, with a Starbucks on the way, ideally. Listen to a podcast. And then in the afternoon, I'm trying to make sure I get fed. I mean, I probably Uber Eats, DoorDash too many lunches. The other thing we do, though, is we use our smartphones for productivity quite a bit. And for me, it's oftentimes using it for MS Teams to collaborate with teammates. I actually, I'm not gonna lie, I should probably give credit to ChatGPT. If you like the speech, it gets half the credit. I also use it to execute contracts, DocuSign, any number of things. And when it's not work, I use it for entertainment, right? How many of you guys here are streaming Ted Lasso, right? Ted Lasso, streaming music, FaceTiming the family, and oftentimes I do this on the mobile network because it's actually more reliable than Wi-Fi. And I'm a little lazy, like trying to sign in, log in, and all that stuff. My phone works just fine. I don't think I'm unique in how I use my smartphone. I suspect that we all use our phones unconditionally and we just assume that it's gonna work all the time. What this means, though, is we consume a lot of data. The average user consumes around 17 gigabytes of data. Average smartphone users, that is, consume 17 gigabytes of data. And what's really interesting is, if your experience is like mine, we actually would probably consume more data if we could. Like, think about all the countless times you put your phone away because it's buffering or it's lagging or you get that will. If the network could keep up with my demand, I would be consuming way more data. And some examples of this, so here's an example. Amazon did a study years ago where they said that what they found is 100 millisecond delay in network traffic impacted their revenue negatively by up to 1%. And Amazon makes billions upon billions. 1% is a lot of money to lose in a blink of an eye, because 100 millisecond literally is a blink of an eye. Google did a similar study, and what they found is a 500 millisecond delay could end up costing them 20% less traffic on their search engine. So as consumers, we will use the network if it's there to be used. So what's interesting about this concept about data demand is that it's not the demand that's actually the constraint, it's actually the supply. As we bring more capacity online, it gets consumed. So if you just turn to this chart a little bit, in 2022, this is from Ericsson. As a population, we use about 6 exabytes worth of data. And for folks that care, I had to Google this. There's gigabytes, then there's terabytes, and then there's petabytes, and then there's exabytes. So you're talking about factors of billions here. 6 exabytes of data in 2022, and by the time you get to 2027, we are forecasting, or Ericsson's forecasting, that data demand will grow 3 times to 18 exabytes a month. What's really interesting about this this data, though, is it really is based on the assumption that a lot of this data demand is driven by gaming, XR, which is AR, VR, mixed reality, and continued consumption of video. These are high definition, high bandwidth applications, typically has a lot of upload traffic, and most of this is being pushed to the cloud. So all of this is driving a lot more traffic through the network. What it does not include, though, is what many would consider more of the transformative use cases associated with 5G. So you don't hear me talking about self-connected cars or connected cars, drones, remote health. What a lot of this suggests is that the use cases we have in front of us today is enough to propel this amount of demand for the foreseeable future. And as you think about 5G, as it brings the network to 20 times faster than 4G, more capacity at 10,000, which is really around efficiency and connected devices, and reduction in latency, 5G is going to actually drive, hopefully, exponential growth in data on top of just video and gaming. But with these capabilities, 5G is going to be the platform for innovation. It really is going to help drive the next innovation in terms of mobile experiences. So with high bandwidth, you're talking about XR, really like around AR, VR, and the like. With reliability and redundancies and low latency, you're talking about mission critical activities like connected cars, drones, and again, remote health. And as you think about the capacity, this is really about the Internet of Things play. Anything that can be connected will be connected, right? So you're talking about smart cities, you're talking about sensors, you're talking about conservation, industrial applications. Admittedly, there's really not a 5G killer app yet, right? I think we're all kind of waiting for it. And as I go back to that chart, the good news for a lot of us in this room is the data demand from video continues to outstrip anything that we could put out there. So for the foreseeable future, there will be plenty of activity. As you think about further, where does the next killer app come from? What's interesting right now, though, is 5G is really leveraging and changing some of the applications we already have today. So a really good one, and I apologize, I think I missed Josh's keynote today, but I heard he talked about fixed wireless. So fixed wireless is actually a really interesting one because obviously it's been around for a very, very long time. But fixed wireless is really grown very significantly because of the advancement in 5G, the availability of mid-band spectrum, and the support of a regulatory/government environment. If you think about the last year, half of broadband connections actually additions came from 5G, right? So a lot of that came from T-Mobile and Verizon. And then Ericsson's forecasting that the fixed wireless connections actually are going to grow 3 times over the next several years. So fixed wireless is just one of those things where 5G is enabling existing use cases to be even better than they are today, or were before. The other one is really video. I talked a little bit about that. Video continues to be a major driver of growth. Today, video is around 70% of mobile traffic. So, I mean, that's like the social media, the Netflix, the streaming that everyone's viewing while they wait at the stoplight. That's not safe, don't do that. Maybe if you're sitting around, right? In the future, the data demand is expected to be, for video, it's actually supposed to be 80% of traffic. So what that means is, if you go back to the previous chart, if data is going to grow 3 times, video is actually going to grow 4 times. And that's really going to push the network to really have to really expand and add capacity. So on the one hand, we talked about capacity, on one hand we talked about demand, and the punchline again is it's going to grow at a very staggering amount. The other hand is then the ability and appetite for the industry to really invest to meet that demand. And again, I think it's really helpful to take a step back and see what we have seen historically in the industry. So as you see on this slide here, 2G, call it the mid-90s, where we were rolling out nationwide digital voice and text. That was around $125 billion worth of investment to roll out this network. Consumer adoption gained steam. The economic model proved out. This allowed the carriers and the operators to then start to invest in 3G. So as you look at 3G in the early 2000s, that brought the mobile internet. That's a $200 billion investment that the carriers made. And it changed the amount of data that what we use from just voice and text alone to the mobile internet and the email. And I mean, everyone remembers their BlackBerry and the whole scrolling of the thumb thing. But again, very similar to 2G, the model played itself out. The network was built, consumer demand took place, adoption took place, and as a result, the carriers were able to monetize that network and then reinvest it into 4G. So you get to 4G in the 2010s timeframes. I'm not sure how to call that decade, but the 2010s, 4G came around, and it was a step function. It brought the mobile internet. During that time, the carriers invested $325 billion. Data grew 96 times in the span of the 4G life cycle. That's because of the data-rich applications that we couldn't get to with 3G. And as you think about 5G, the carriers are often running on 5G as well, having invested $225 billion already. Now, 80 billion of that is the C-band auction, but very similar to the previous cycles, what we would expect here is a pretty extended life cycle of investments. And in our own view at Crown, we believe that this is going to be actually, in terms of duration and magnitude, much longer than what we have seen in other life cycles. You see it go from 2G, 3G to 4G. Every cycle requires more investments, and then the adoption comes, and then it repeats itself. And this all works because economically it makes sense for our customers to actually do this. So this is a quick slide on ARPU and margins for the wireless carriers in the United States. The US consumers use more data than anyone else in the world for the most part, except for maybe South Korea, I think. And we're willing to pay for it. On average, we pay around $35 per subscriber. This compares to the rest of the developed markets at $24. So as US consumers, we're paying 46% more because we actually are using a lot more, but we're willing to pay for it and we have the capabilities to pay for it. And then the carriers on the right-hand side of the slide actually retain more of those dollars than relative to other markets. So the margins there are 58% compared to 45%. What this shows is that as US consumers, we demand more data and more bandwidth, we're willing to pay for it, and then the carriers are able to monetize it and retain it, at which point they reinvest in it. And it's actually the reason why at Crown you hear us talk a lot about the US market is the most attractive market, and that's why we're 100% in the US market. This chart summarizes that work a little bit. All right, so the carriers are investing in this network, to what end? It's like, what do they get for this network? And these are the things that the network, in terms of specs that our customers are trying to achieve. They're trying to achieve lower latency. If you think about mission critical activities, data needs to come back and forth as quickly as possible. They're trying to serve high bandwidth use, such as video, connected cars, or even devices that don't generate a lot of data, but they're just millions of them, right, in terms of density of device. And we're seeing more and more of our customers, technology companies, pushing towards the edge. The devices in our phone wallet can launch a space shuttle is not enough compute power for us to really target the future use cases that are coming down the pike. And then it's also about reliability. To do all this, it actually brings us full circle back to Crown Castle. To do everything we just talked about requires a robust and extensive environment of investment in both tower, fiber, and small cell infrastructure. Towers continues to be the best and most effective way to provide broad and ubiquitous coverage. It's also one of the most effective ways to get to the edge. This further is supplemented by small cells, where we can do further cell site densification to bring more capacity, better reliability, and lower latency to the network. And all this is connected by fiber. Fiber ultimately is going to be how the transport's going to happen that connects all these network elements back to the core. And at Crown, we believe that the shared infrastructure model is going to be the most timely and cost-effective way to enable 5G. Now, I've covered a lot of ground here. We've gone from 1G to 5G, and I think what I'll end with is, it's been an amazing ride. We've done it together. The future is very bright. What we've been able to accomplish is really a testament to the spirit of innovation, the can-do attitude of this group, and really of the industry. And as we look ahead, the pathway to possible, we're very excited to be a part of that with you guys all here. So thank you very much. I'll try to figure out how much time I have left. I didn't time it very well. It's 10 minutes. I should have stalled a little bit more. But I'd be happy to take any questions you guys all have. If not, I'll let you guys get back to your day too. Oh, I should just rip off this mic and run. Well, good. I appreciate everyone. Thank you.